Introducing Digital Scrapbook Artist 2, Advanced Digital Scrapbooking Made Easy. In this video, I'm going to give you an introduction to what's new in Digital Scrapbook Artist 2. Okay, we're going to start with this existing document. The first thing you might notice actually is any object now on a page that we hover over is highlighted with this blue outline. It works for a single object or groups of objects on the layer that we're working. It's called Hover Selection Aid, so it's always easy to see which objects are available to pick up and what they're grouped with. Next feature is with regards colour. If, like me, you're not very good at selecting the most appropriate colours, then on the Colour tab you'll see a More option, which now takes you to the Colour Palette Designer. Now with the Colour Palette Designer, if I just clear the existing palette, it's possible to select a colour from within the document that we're working on, or choose any colour we like from within the colour wheel and triangle. And then we can use the Colour Palette Designer to choose complementary colours for us. So you can actually spread out the angle of colours here. We can choose the style of palettes. And when you find the colour palette that you think suits your document, simply add it to your palette. You can even save that palette for later and then say OK. And there we can see the palette of colours that we can use with any shapes or materials or stitches or brushes that we're using within the program. OK, so next I'm going to just change the background of this document for a different material. There we go. And then to move on to the next new feature, we're going to look at stencils. Stencils are fantastic. They're broken down into different categories: birds, creatures, furniture, plants and floral. So you simply choose the category and then find a stencil within it and drag that over onto your page. Now you have the stencil on top of your page. Select a brush. I'm going to use one of the new grunge brushes. Just scroll down until you find a brush that you like. Then back to colour, just to choose the colour we want this brush to be in. Increase its size. And now just use that on the stencil. And it doesn't matter if you go outside the bounds of the stencil, that's what it's there for. So if we just repeat that several times, you can see the effect that we could create. A very realistic looking stencil. Other thing to mention here as well is that you can actually invert the stencil. This means if we do the same thing and just work around our stencil, when we remove that, you're left with the gap in the middle. If you wanted to create your own stencil, that's quite simple. You can take any shapes that you have, or I'm going to use an embellishment. Just pop that onto the page. So you can see how complex this embellishment is. We'll simply drag that over into your own category or one of the existing categories in the Stencils tab, and then drag it back out, and you'll see that it's actually created a stencil of the shape, like so. Okay. Next feature I'd like to show you is blend modes. Blend modes are usually something associated with maybe a separate photo editing program, but now all of that power is available in Digital Scrapbook Artist 2. So I'll start with the stencils that we've created. If you select any object and then come to the Colour tab, you'll notice the new blend mode selector. You can try out different blend modes yourself simply by clicking through them to see what effect they have. I'm going to use the soft light blend mode here. It's going to give us the impression that our doves or birds here are actually part of the paper in the background. We can also use blend modes on photographs, so I'm going to move over to the background layer, just hide what's happening in the foreground for a moment, and on the background layer I'm going to bring in a photo. So one way to try and achieve this in the past would have been to use transparencies. Now transparencies are quite useful. In this case I'm going to use a ellipse transparency just to give our photograph a softer edge. But you can see that we still look like a photograph that's going transparent around the edges. If I now add a blend mode to this photo, I'm going to choose the multiply blend mode and then just roll down the list. You can see some of the different effects that we can create. In this instance, I think the overlay is the best blend mode, so we'll keep it there. And then I'm simply going to rotate this and increase this size. Again, this now looks like it forms part of our background material. We're now going to bring this back with the detail of the front of the page just to see what it looks like. And that brings us to the end of the first section of what's new in Digital Scrapbook Artist 2. In the next section we're going to look at more blend modes, also the new Photo Lab and a couple of other extra features.